Hello, everybody, and welcome to another video of Keeping It Spiritually Simple. And today I have an amazing and beautiful guest, Sev Tok. And we have not met personally. We've done our Zooms, but we have literally walked a lot of this earth in the same footprint, but have not physically met, which is just hilarious to me, which is, I think, what kind of drew us together. But she's an author, a researcher, an experiencer, and I'm just going to hand it over to her and let her tell you all about herself. Hello.
Hello. Thank you so much for this opportunity to be
You
here
are
with
most
you
welcome.
and your listeners and your viewers. Yes, we do have a lot of similarities, which caught my attention. And it's so many that I couldn't ignore it. So chances are we've probably aligned with one another in some other form or in some other life or in some other dimension. The similarities are just too much and they're nice. I like it.
Yeah, me too. And I feel the same way, sister.
All right, so to introduce myself.
Yes, introduce yourself. And I know that, you have so many things besides books and all that stuff. But one of the things I think you're also a field something.
Yeah.
And I was like, I wonder what that is. And I never got a chance to ask you before. So you just tell the viewers what it is you'd like them to know about you and what you're doing and what brought you to this moment and the floor is yours.
My name is Sev Tok, and I'm originally from Istanbul, Turkey. I came here as a little girl. I didn't know English when I started first grade, and I went on to get a biology degree from Loyola University. And now I'm a spiritual counselor, an author, a speaker, a researcher, a host, and an experiencer. And I help experiencers around the world. I do that privately. If you've had an experience, you can contact me on my website, planetsev.com. And I also help experience through MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, which is the largest UFO ET organization in the world. And I'm a field investigator for them for the state of North Carolina. And I'm also on their experiencer resource team. And this is a small group of people. There's only 55 of us around the world. And we deal specifically with people who've made contact with ETs. So my field investigative work, it tends to be more about seeing UFOs in the sky, seeing orbs, maybe burnt marks on the ground, things like that. But the ERT work is actually talking to people who've made contact. And my spiritual work and my ET work do crossover. So for the past 12 years, I've been a spiritual counselor doing soul purpose sessions and soul support sessions. These are interdimensional sessions where I get information about why you're here, your purpose, how you can manifest it, how you can activate it, what a past life is of yours that explains something that's going on now, also the best career paths for you, and also a mental block. We all have them, a block or two that you might know about, or maybe you don't know about, that we discuss, that's preventing you from progress or success. And we talk about how we can maneuver around that or alleviate it. So basically, the soul purpose reading is an energetic blueprint for you to follow, so you can activate your purpose and express your authenticity, which is really important to be fulfilled and happy.
Yeah, and that's actually a lot. It's getting involved with our soul's purpose versus the mental monkey mind of what we've been told is supposed to be and what's acceptable and what routes, you're to follow and who you should follow and how you should follow them is really just something we kind of need to take a look at and see, if that truly is what our soul came in to do and what blocks you have in building that or stopping you from building that. And there's a lot of people out here now who are experiencing, they're just not happy with where they are in this moment because so many things are changing. And when we can get into maybe what's happening just in this lifetime, okay, if you don't believe in another lifetime, let's start with this lifetime, and what you may have experienced here can have a lot of effect on your today, your yesterdays, but more importantly, you can change it moving into your tomorrow. So let's talk a little bit about the experiencing for those viewers who may not, understand exactly what that is, because, and I'm asking because what I'm finding with a lot of my clients in regression work and so on is a lot of memories are coming up of having experiences as a child that they didn't really ever understand fully, but it made sense in why they had some fears, some anxieties that led to maybe some habits that weren't so beneficial for their life. And I'm finding a lot of that is coming up more now in the flow of things. And I have a feeling because we're opening up together about this now and more people are coming forward, it's not so taboo to talk about experiences. And when we talk about experiences with ETs or whatever we want to call them, we're terrestrial, they're extraterrestrial. What does that mean, really? I mean, seriously, it's that simple. But so many people are under the religious thing of, no, it has to be angelic. And I think a lot of what has been extra, people will have categorized into angelic, where there is that realm as well, but there's a lot of mixed confusion. So if you'd like to maybe share a little bit about that.
Mm-hmm. Well, there are a variety of different beings, and there are an unlimited amount of dimensions. So basically, there's an unlimited amount of beings that have consciousness. Just like each of us are experiencing a variety of consciousnesses simultaneously. We call them past lives, but they're really present lives because quantum physics says everything's happening now. So we're actually so much bigger than this that we're actually having a multitude of consciousnesses at the same time. And some of us can visit those other consciousnesses. Some of us can visit those other so-called past lives. I call them alternate lives. And some alternate lives we're more aligned with than others. For instance, in the sessions that I have, the past life that comes up for a very specific purpose to explain something that's going on in this life, because often we are visiting and dealing with the same themes in one consciousness throughout another consciousness. And as we're healing something, as we're transforming something in one life, it's being healed and transformed in another life. And I like to think of it as, when you fold paper and then you cut out like a little child and then you go like this, it's a string of children. That's how I think of us in our past lives. And there's this energetic being that runs through all of them. And we're connected to all of our consciousnesses at the same time.
Yes.
And it's through meditation that we can poke into our other consciousnesses. And also by raising our frequency, we can poke into our other consciousnesses easier too.
Yes. Yeah, and I think when we talk about guides and higher selves, we're talking about that extended paper doll of ourselves as well. It's not like it's a whole separate thing over here, echoing things that it's you. It's just different areas of you that are developed in different dimensions. Like, for example, a ninth grader can help a second grader, and a fifth grader can talk to a college student, and then someone in the master's program and someone above there. But they're all forms of you is how I look at it. Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's unlimited. There's unlimited version of you. There's unlimited versions of Earth. There's unlimited versions of realities. And with every decision we make, we slip into an alternate universe. Every decision we make takes us into another alternate universe. And sometimes the people we know follow us into those alternate universes, and sometimes they don't.
Yes. And sometimes we wish they didn't. We thought we were done with you. All right, well, let's talk about, you know, you have a book that's called You Have the Right to Talk to Aliens. Okay. And, when I've asked, my own guides, I've been told they don't really care if I call them aliens or ETs or guides or whatever I call them. But there's certain people out here like they want to be referred to by such and such. And I'm like, okay, well, whatever works for you. So tell us a little bit about that.
About the beings?
Well, about the right to talk to the aliens.
Okay.
And then how would is there a proper way or an informal way to call them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. So that's a big question, and I could talk about that for hours, but I'll try and hit the major points.
Okay.
It's a good question. I like it. We all have the right to talk to aliens. And when you go on this spiritual journey, this spiritual blossoming, when you step on that path and you follow it, you can't help but eventually bump into some kind of ET or some kind of a worldly being. It's just going to happen because that is our reality. And you're going to bump into them because you've changed your focus and your awareness, and you know that you exist in these higher dimensions. And when you put your focus into those higher dimensions, that's when you meet the beings in those other dimensions. That's when you get information, downloads from those other dimensions. That's when beings and information and visions come to you in meditations and so-called dreams. And one thing that is prevalent, well, I can only talk for the United States of America because I did most of my growing up here, is that we have a victimization attitude here. Almost all of us feel like a victim. And that's how I felt for most of my life. And I've been in 2 abusive marriages. And when I left the second one, I decided, it's me. I did this twice, so it has to be me.
Mm-hmm.
Why did I do that? Why did I allow that? And then I started that journey, and it's the journey of authenticity. So you have to face hurdles, you have to face blocks, things that you've been pushing down, denying that are real part of you. And that one thing for me was my lifelong ET contact. I denied it for decades. So when I finally got on this path of authenticity to be the happiest, most fulfilled version of myself, I had to face the ETs. And it was very hard, and I did it. It's the best thing I've ever done. And I realized the reason I was so afraid of them is because I was looking at them through my victim lens. Once I dropped that lens, then I realized that the grays, who I was very afraid of, were always helping me, that they've always been my friends and they've always been supporting me. And then I realized I just had this warped sense of identity, thinking I was a victim and everything was happening to me. When I changed that, and so that translated into my ET contact. It's not just on Earth I'm the victim everywhere I go throughout the cosmos. Yeah. I'm like, I don't want that anymore. And so I changed it, and I help my clients change that perspective too, because it manifests in every realm of your life. If you're a victim, it's going to show up in every arena of your life, and it does not manifest well.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. I think that's a huge hurdle many of us have to step into, and you can't take your power and own your power if you have even a smidget of victimism. Everything's being done unto you. Why? Even when you want to act like you've ironed out the wrinkles and you're okay, if you even have a smidget of that left, that's one of the first things that needs to be worked on.
Yes, it's vital. It will change your life for the better if you can drop that. Now, when we do this kind of transformative work, as you know, everything changes in our reality. Our energy is changing, and we align with like energies, people, places, events, communities, everything. It's in your life because its energy is similar to yours. So if you want to change, you have to change your energy so you can attract something different with another energy that you want. But I forgot what I was going to say. I was talking about, what were we talking about?
We were talking about the experiences, and then like, do they want to be called by name, and our right to be able to talk to them? And we were on that kind of a thing.
Oh, okay. All right. It is very interesting that you bring up the whole name thing, because a lot of people do like names. And I've never asked for names. I always go by how they feel, right? You know the different entities that you're communicating with by how they feel. And if you can hear them, if they have words, they sound a little different, but mostly it's feeling. But like you said, just like you said, if you want a name, they'll give you a name. I mean, if that's how you want to do it, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I mean, like for me, I used to ask for names because it was just a natural thing. Even when I met my higher self many years ago, I was like, so what's your name? And I am you, you are me. And I said, yeah, I know, but what's your name? And this went back and forth. And finally I'm like, well, okay, well, I guess I'm not going to get a name. Then I realized it was me, and everything made sense. But when I get other guides that come in, which, I call my light body family, and they can be considered, ETs, aliens, angels. I don't care. If they want me to know their name, they're going to tell me their name. And if they're here for, trickery and other things, they don't even come in my space. I kind of know my stuff. I just know by feeling.
Yeah, that's very important too, about connecting. When you're out there, you're very open.
Yeah.
Oh, but there was something else I wanted to say.
I said trickery, and I think
that's when I talk with you. I just keep going off on so many tangents.
We need hours. We need hours, girl. I said the word trickery, and I saw a little spark happen there.
Yes, the trickery spark, right. So on my YouTube channel, Alien Spirit TV, I have videos there to help you channel, to help you connect with spirit guides and with ETs. And at the end of each one, it's a series of 3. At the end of each one, I've created a guided meditation with high activation music. And I take you through this meditation to connect and to show you how it feels like, and just to let you know how easy you can do it. And I do suggest these are free, and because meditation is really important. Now, when you are going out through the cosmos looking for friends, whether it's an ET or just another being, it doesn't have to be an alien, it just can be another being, a spiritual being. You're going to align with beings that are similar to your energy. That's why it's so important to work on increasing your personal vibratory field. And there's many, many, many ways to do that. Now, we can go back, we can talk about that later if you'd like to.
No, you go, just flow, just go.
Okay, but I just want to talk a little bit about when you open yourself up to talking with energetic beings. It's very important that you know that you're in control. It's very important that you know that you have the choice of whether you're going to speak or have an interaction with another being. They don't have the choice. And even though your vibe is high, there could be some lower vibratory beings maybe around you just trying to poke at you, trying to see if they have a chance. So you have to just knock them down. And I had this experience when I had a friend visit me in December of 2020. And she came for a few days. And her first night there, she went into the guest room and I went into my bedroom. And I woke up in the middle of the night because she came into my bed. And I said, what's the matter? And she said, I'm afraid. And then I felt something behind me and I turned around, and just 2 feet from the bed is this tall, black being. It was darker than the darkness in the room, and it had on a hat. So it was like this traditional men in black that we hear about, but this was an astral men in black. And I could kind of see through him, and his energy was not good. It was very uncomfortable. So I told it had to go, but it didn't want to. And then I felt its energy come out of its chest and then into mine. I could literally feel it coming into my chest, and it felt like tentacles that just wanted to grab me and pull me out, like pull my essence out.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to put up a fight. And I kept saying, no, you got to go. You got to go. I don't have what you want. You have fear. I don't have fear. You got to go. And so there was this energetic battle, and it finally disappeared. And I was very tired, and I went to sleep. And I woke up in the morning, and my girlfriend was not there, but she doesn't remember any of that. Something else happened to her while that was happening to me. So I learned that I learned how easy it is to succumb to a really heavy, lower energy. It's very easy, but don't do it. You don't have to do it.
That's important to know, because we hear so many mixed things going on right now as we're getting into this open exposure to everyday people, right? Who are doing this. So there's a lot of, oh, those are bad, and this is going to happen, and then you have to do this, then you have to do that. And if you can understand that you can do your own power of protection, and just to be aware, just like if you were to be in any place here tangibly on earth, an auditorium, a school, a mall, or whatever, you know, anybody can come up and push your buttons if they think they can, or try to take your purse or whatever. But if you have your energy aligned prior to going to the mall and prior to going to this auditorium, and you know you're zipped up and you're good, first off, if it comes at you, it's going to go, oh crap, can't get her, you know, or it's going to be like, well, let's try anyway. And, you know, and then you're like, yeah. You don't even have to give them the finger. I mean, your whole energy is like, boom, get out of here. You know?
Right. Now, some people say that they don't want that energy, but they're talking out both sides of their mouth. So you have to really, like, every cell in your body has to repel this energy. It's not like, yo, you're kind of cool though. I mean, this makes a good story. Go away. But kind of like, it's kind of neat.
Yeah.
It won't go away.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to be firm about it, because, well, until you get stronger and can really understand it, it's best that you don't invite anything that could interfere, sabotage, or take control of your frequency dial. That's not what you want. Until you get super strong and can figure out what it is, then there's a respect for this energy. There's a big respect for it, and that requires self-respect. You know, it's just like people. You know, the older we get, it's like, I am not hanging around them, and I don't want to hear from them. And I you know, it's not like, you know, we're turning a blind eye to it. So I have enough experience to know that I'm not going through that, just not doing it. Sorry. I'd rather stand here alone in my own little twister board by myself, going into all the different positions, than play with you guys. So I have no idea where that came from. That's just what they showed me. It was like the Twister thing. But so let's talk a little bit about, you know, we're hearing a lot about good and bad, you know, and so that's really what we're talking about. And it's not so much that it's a good and bad, because I think that really limits the energy. It's really about trying to align with a frequency that is for elevating higher expanded consciousness, versus pulling it down and keeping it in the blind spots. Thank you. They just showed me that. So that's kind of what I'm getting. So what advice, besides, you know, get the frick out of here, can't have anything of this, can we give our viewers?
Just keep your vibe high. So that takes a lot of looking into every arena of your life. For instance, everything has a vibration, everything has a frequency. So, you know, your thoughts have frequency. And so what kind of thoughts are in your body? Are they positive? Are they negative? Ideas have frequency. Knowledge has frequency. What kind of ideas do you have? What kind of knowledge do you retain? What kind of knowledge do you look for? The food you ate, the music you listen to, the books you read, the TV shows you watch, where you live, the colors you wear, the fabric you touch. Do you eat out of plastic or do you eat out of silver? All of this contributes to your personal vibratory field.
Yes. That was really good in a nutshell, because everything is energy. Everything is energy. And you can feel when you're aligned and you can feel when you're off, but it becomes something that you have to take action with every day, all day, throughout whatever revolving door of life you're going through in that period of time. And then there's also those who, I'll deal with that later. I'll deal with that later. And it's like, you can take 2 seconds to tune in and change the vibration within yourself and around yourself. It doesn't need to be like, oh, when I go home, I'll take an hour to meditate, because most people don't have time to do that. So they have to learn to do minis. And I think your videos would be extremely beneficial for people to do. And by the way, viewers, I'll make sure all of Sev's links are in the description. So don't worry about that right now, about trying to write it down. So what about people who think they may have had encounters, but don't really know how to put it together?
So that could be a combination of conscious memories and dreamlike memories, or it could be just conscious memories or just dreamlike memories. With me, it was conscious memories. And some of them are dreamy, because ET contact happens in a variety of dimensions. And when we recall these experiences, these interdimensional experiences, which are different than these 3D experiences, we don't have a name really to call that kind of experience. Our brain doesn't know what to label it. So our brain calls it a dream or a fantasy or hallucination, imagination, and it's none of those things. It's a real interdimensional travel. And you tend to remember it in this kind of hazy way. But what sets it apart from a real dream is that you can't shake it. You can't let it go. I just put on my YouTube channel a brand new video about the top 10 signs of ET contact. And one of them is, well, actually number 1 is what I call transcendental memory. It's a memory that transcends decades, transcends energy, transcends everything. You can't shake it. For instance, when I was 10 years old, my first conscious memory of coming in contact with another worldly being, with an ET, was when I was 10, and until I was 12. And I can see them so clearly to this day, but I can't remember the other dreams I had when I was 10. So when you have this kind of experience, not only can you remember it in detail, but it elicits a physical response. It elicits an emotion every time you think about it. That is not just a dream.
Right.
So I would suggest starting from there, if you have any of those, and then going into meditation and seeing if you can get more information, and also getting help. There's so much help. You can come to me, I'll help you. You can contact me at sev@planetsev.com. Go on my website at planetsev.com, and there's a portal there called Tell Me Your ET Story. Tell me your ET story, and I'll respond, and I'll help you as much as I can. And I'm helping experiencers around the world, because this did not happen by accident.
No.
There's a really good reason you made contact, or you saw a UFO hovering over you. And what's that reason? So let's get to that reason. The reason is a beautiful one. The reason is to benefit you. So let's get there. I'll help you get there.
And that's awesome, because, I've had to do so much of this by myself.
Yeah.
So much by myself. And so I feel like I came in with the hard knocks. I have to viscerally learn it, so that now I can viscerally share it with others, and because I'm an everyday average person, I have nothing to gain or lose by telling you my story or sharing how it might benefit you, because it just benefits you. You can choose what you want. But the first 2 times that I've seen things, and have felt things and remember things. And now that my sight is much more developed, I see more, and they're just appearing everywhere. When I can't sleep at night, I always know why. And sometimes even though there's some floating around my room in the form of orbs and I can see all the energy going there, I will still go to my window and I will just like be like this on my windowsill, and I'm watching the action and the little sparks, and they say hi, and I'm just like,
Oh, that's
oh,
wonderful.
I just love you guys. Thanks. And then
that's
I go.
That's one of the top 10 signs of ET contact, when you have orbs in the house and outside of the house.
All over. Yeah.
Yeah. And the orbs can be, there's so many theories about what these orbs are. It can be ETs, they can be angels, they can be another type of being, they could be consciousness that takes the shape of an orb. It could be a spaceship that morphs into an orb. It could be so many different things, so many.
Yeah, I mean, I've had them where I can tell which ones are like sort of my guide. I have one main guide that's a big protector of mine. So if I am at any point or time where I'm like, what is all this? And I'm getting inundated, he will show up and show me who he is. And I'm like, okay, everything's good. Now let me look at what?
What color?
Well, they're different colors. So I have green, I have blue, and then I have pink, and I have yellow and violet. So those are the 5 main colors that are floating around all the time. And sometimes I'll open my eyes when I'm sleeping and one will be right there. And sometimes they'll show me a face. And sometimes it can be going into a past life where that's me in the past life, or they're just an ancient one trying to like, hey, and then there's some that are just observers where they're here observing what is happening around Earth. But they may, I know for me, the few times that I saw the observers, they kind of started to back away like, oh crap, man, she saw us. And I'd be like, it's okay, you can come out. I'm not coming in there to get you. Because one will like, a couple of them will hover at my bathroom doorway where I can just see them from my computer. And I'm like, you're gonna have to come out. I'm not coming in. And so they'll slowly come out. Now they just kind of hover around. They just watch what I'm doing. But I do tell them, everyone at night, that you may not disturb my sleep. I do have to put boundaries up sometimes, because I can go days where I'm like, I feel like I've had just injected adrenaline, and I'm like, it's just too much. But then I also know that it's my body upgrading. It's my body upgrading in a different way. And so instead of fighting it or getting angry, I just go, okay, well, I just have a sleepless night. I'll be fine. I'll coast through. But then after a couple of days, I have to go, okay, that's enough. That's, this needs to sleep.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I was 16, I started to do automatic writing, which we now call channeling. Same thing.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah, and so I did that a lot starting at 16. Throughout my entire life, I do it now. But I stopped for many, many periods thinking I was insane, and I just threw away everything that I ever wrote. And then I couldn't help it. I'd start again. And then the most beautiful things would come out. I knew it wasn't me, because I don't talk like that. I didn't even know that stuff. Just these beautiful messages about love. I'm like, oh, this is amazing. And I'd write and write and write and write. And then a couple months later, I'm like, I'm insane. And I would throw it all away. And dead people would contact me and they would give me messages, and I would write and write and write and write and write. And then I'm like, you're insane. And I would throw it all away. And that was the roller coaster of my life until I was around 40. And I don't know, something just hit me. And I told myself, I need an answer, because if I am insane, then I'm going to go get help. But if I'm not insane, what am I supposed to do with this? This is pretty interesting. So I got my answer. I'm not insane. And I'm like, okay, then I'm just going to try it. I'm going to try doing readings. So I called my girlfriend and I said, send me somebody I don't know. It has to be someone I don't know. And now I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know what a reading was, but I was going to do one. Mm-hmm. And so she sent me two people. And I remember when they were on their way over, I was so nervous. This was the most nervous I've ever been in my life. I thought I was going to throw up.
Because you think you have to perform.
Yeah, well, I was either going to fly or I was going to sink. And I was like, well, I have to be prepared for sinking. I have to be prepared, because I kept hearing, you'll regret this on your deathbed if you didn't try. Just try.
Yeah.
And the devil's going, you don't have to do it. If you're going to throw up, just throw up and tell him not to come over. And the angel's going, oh, you're not going to throw up. You're going to be fine. Don't worry about it. So I let the angel win. And they came and I did the sessions and it worked. And I'm like, whew, all right, this is what I'm going to do.
That's
And
awesome.
then 10 years later, the whole ET thing started coming up because something happened to me. I had a contact here in
Mhm.
2017 that made me come out. A gray burned 2 red X's on my back, and that made me come out.
Yeah.
And so now my whole spiritual career, and now I've only been out with my ET stuff for 3 years. It's still pretty new. So I have my spiritual career, the UFO ET career, but then there's a place where they also intersect, the Vesica Pisces place where they intersect. And so there's 3 different areas that I'm engaged in, which are very exciting.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting when you're talking about like you had no choice in 2017 when you get, you know, physically burnt marks on your body. And it just goes with every time we do not follow our intuition and we're kind of avoiding something and it's really our life path and we're just trying to find ways to get the hell off of it, they will come and knock you over the head. Whether it's you're gonna get like a cold flu where you're gonna have to lay in bed for a whole week and you're never sick and you better accept it, or you're gonna have like a, you know, something because you haven't been paying attention.
Yes.
I know for me, I have to say, no more knocks in the head. I got it. And then to your insanity thing, I'm like, I am freaking insane. And I'm okay with that, because if this is insane, then something's wrong with the sanity part, or what we've been trained to know what the sanity is. And I know for me, it's been decades. When someone says normal, I go, who are you talking to? Because this is not normal. I don't want to be in that category. Don't put me there. But honestly, more people are actually in our category than want to admit it, because they don't want to get out of their comfort zone because they're so concerned about opinion, judgments, or this is going to be so unknown while I'm digging into it. It's weird. But here's the beautiful thing I'm going to say to these viewers, and I want your comment on this, is Sev went through it by herself and learned. I went through it by myself and learned. And I remember in the 90s in my massage room having visitors come in, and I'm like working on someone going, what the heck? But I was never scared. I knew how to handle all of it. I just knew. But here I am, fast forward 3 decades later, and more is happening, and I'm still self-learning. But you all don't have to self-learn. You can reach out to Sev, to myself, and we'll, if something isn't where it's in our wheelhouse at the moment, we'll get you to where you need to go. But you don't have to suffer and wander. Don't you kind of want a clear picture of like, and it does, and there's a difference between insanity and crazy. There's a difference. There's a fine line between that. So maybe be okay with the insane part of this is pretty freaking cool, and you're not crazy, by reaching out to one of us. So what are your thoughts on that?
Such good advice. Absolutely. It's so important. So when I got the second X on me, let me see if I can show your viewers a picture of this.
Yeah, please do. Because I mean, I've seen it, but I want them to see it.
So there's an X. So the first one showed up, it's on my tush. The first one showed up on my left cheek. And then 9 days later, there was another one exactly like it on my right cheek, exactly across from each other. So when the first one showed up, I knew it was the Grays, but I had no proof. And I just told my ex, we're just going to ignore this. Let's pretend like it never even happened. Because that's what I've been doing my whole life. And then 9 days later, the second X came. And that's because that's what I needed. I needed that serious of a alarm to have 2X. That's what I needed. And then finding, my God, like my threshold to take their messages has been so high, because just about all my life. I've had weird things on my skin, scoop marks, bruises, geometric shapes, lights in the hallway, beings touching me in my room. And just like, yeah, just file. And then what happens is when you deny a really true part of yourself, you're never fulfilled in any arena. You're not fulfilled in your relationships. You're not fulfilled in your career. You're not fulfilled in your life. You're not fulfilled with yourself because you're hiding a big part of you. So that's why it's really important to get the help. Now, you don't have to come out like I did, like in a global way. You can just come out to yourself.
Yes, that's what I've done. I've very few people know what I've experienced. I get it. You don't have to come out in a global way. You can just come out by just admitting to yourself something's up and I want to know more about it. So go ahead.
Real, and if you come out to me, come out to other people. When I got the second X, it's really hard to describe what that felt like, because at that moment I realized all the ET contact I've had my whole entire life is real. And it was like the rug was just pulled out from underneath my feet. And I was scared because back then I didn't like the Greys. I thought they were victimizing me. And I was confused. I'm like, who am I? Who are we? And what am I doing hanging out with aliens in the middle of the night? And why are they being so mean to me? And it was an existential crisis. So I waited. I said I needed help for the first time in my life. I said I needed help, and I decided to wait, to just let that help organically come. And it did a few months later through Kathleen Marden. Maybe your viewers might know Kathleen Marden. She's a leading UFO researcher and author. She's on Ancient Aliens. She's all over TV. She's the niece of Betty and Barney Hill. She is like the queen of UFO ET knowledge. And I reached out to her. She was a huge help. We've become friends. She's endorsed my book. She's my mentor. She's a darling person, and she's a wealth of knowledge. That's who I reached out to. And then after that, then I started reaching out to other people too, because it got easier and easier. And all the things I was afraid of that was going to happen to me if I came out, like I was going to lose my friends and my family was going to think I was insane, and I would lose all my clients. That was my biggest thing. I was like, my clients cannot know that I'm talking to aliens.
Mm-hmm.
All those fears, no validity, none of it happened. Okay, maybe some of my friends think I'm crazy, or maybe some relatives think I'm crazy, but it wasn't like my life was going to fall apart because I came out. It's the exact opposite. My life got richer.
Well, I think when we step into our authentic self, our whole frequencies realign. So some of the friends that we may have harmonized with at that time, we just don't harmonize with it the same way. So it doesn't have to be a big fight and I hate you and don't ever come around me again. It can be like it just naturally fades away and newer people come in, and that's a real telltale sign that you're in your authentic self, is because things just start getting naturally rearranged a little bit. And now you're finding support. And it's funny because I think it was about 2 years ago, I reached out to Kathleen. She was on a show or something and I got something and we emailed back and forth, and I just completely forgot about it till you just mentioned it. And I was also thinking about what we were talking about in the beginning about when you're out there and you come across maybe a being that just kind of wants to do a pokey and play around, right? And, when 2020 hit, March of 2020, I was so excited because I'm like, I am going to spend all this time communing and getting my communication, up and so on. And every day I would go down to my studio and I'd get on my massage table and I'd go into meditation and blah, 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 blah. And I'm wanting all this contact. And one day I closed my eyes, and next thing I know, there's a being standing on my left side, and they had like a little bottle of something, like looked like one of those, like the old fashioned oil and vinegar glass bottles, but it was one of those. And I remember it was so vivid that I literally opened my eyes up like, what? And then I closed them again and I saw again. And then next thing I know, I was knocked out. I was completely knocked out. And I was like, wow, that was a really refreshing meditation. I don't remember any of it. The next morning, I woke up and I remember something burning really, really bad on my left abdominal. So I went in the bathroom and I like pulled and I was doing the castor oil belt, but I had been doing that. So I thought, oh, maybe the belt kind of rubbed it or something. So when I looked, it was in this bizarre shape and it was on the left abdominal. And I thought, that's really weird. And I completely forgot about this incident. And then a couple days later, I remembered it. And I remember that they had poured this oil on me and had rubbed it on me. Now, the message I got was that there are these beings that float around and they do different things, right? And so for whatever reason, my channel I left open and they came and they just did that, not to cause harm, but maybe just to experiment a little bit. But what it did was it told me, oh, I need to be more in tune of who I'm inviting in and setting my boundaries on that. Yeah. That was the message I got about that. And I totally forgot about it till you were talking about your X's. And X marks the spot, you know, you got it 2 times, bullseye.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I ignored it the first time, but I didn't ignore it the second time. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Were you hearing something?
Yeah, there was someone at my door.
Oh, okay. And you know, the other way we get contact is, you know, through our clairs, you know, like I've always been claircognizant. I've always had a clair knowing of stuff, never, as a child, never understood why I knew certain things, but I would know them. And it was almost like this, like, oh, you're psychic or you're this. So I just didn't express it a lot. And then also the clairsentient, where your perception's a little bit different than maybe the mainstream perception. So you see things differently. And those are also ways of universal God consciousness and the ET world and your guides and your healers. And so don't shut that down. And then my clair audio is starting to come in a little bit, but I don't hear people talk like you and I are talking just yet. But when I say I hear a voice, it's more like, oh, a thought just came flashing in and it's like, that's the question or the answer or a thought. And it's like, I never, ever doubt it, ever. I live by that dial, by it.
Yes. And I do help people strengthen their psi abilities. I have this brand new online course. It's 6 modules, and every module is a different psi ability. And you get the newest in psi research, because there's a lot of research going on in the psi phenomena. And you get a video of me giving you tips on how to strengthen your psychic abilities. And there's a guided meditation, and there's some spiritual information and exercises and tips, and you get that every month. And I had a really good time putting that together. And I really do encourage people to strengthen their psi abilities. As you strengthen your psi abilities, you do start to communicate with the otherworldly beings. But something else happens too. As you start to communicate with otherworldly beings, your frame of reference changes, and you start to view yourself much differently. You start to see how big you are. You're not as tiny as you thought you were. And this different frame of reference is beautiful and very healthy. And it allows you to just kind of like detach a little bit. Maybe you're having a difficult moment. Maybe someone's in your face yelling, but you learn how to focus and just detach a little bit and just watch what's happening. Watch what's happening. So then you start to learn how to have a proper reaction. Because if you want to learn how far you've come along in your spiritual path, just examine your reactions. Your reactions are going to tell you how far along you are.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And it is important because it's our God voice. It's innate. It's in there. We've been programmed or kept too busy that we're just not paying as much attention to it, or we're not giving it the validity that it is. that should be the first voice, the first thought, the first feeling that you that should guide you throughout your day. I mean, that's your steering wheel, that's your gas, that's your brake, that's everything. And then when you understand that, then you start treating yourself in a completely different way. And I know, like for me, okay, great, we've had the last 2 years where we've had more isolation, but I'm one of those people, the more I develop, I'm so A-okay with who I am that, I don't need to be around the physical beings as much, because I have to also be careful of my nervous system and so many other things. You just learn to have much more respect for yourself.
Yes.
And the power that you hold to control that and to work through that. And it's not as difficult or as rigid as people think it is if you just let it flow.
Yes.
So getting in tune with that. So I'm so glad you developed that course. I can't wait to take a look at it.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Well, is there anything? Come on, keep sharing, girl. We're on the same time zone. It's not your lunch hour yet. You don't need food. This is all the nutrients you need.
Happens when you raise your frequency, you do eat less, and you also eat differently. You eat differently because as your frequency gets higher, you want higher frequency food, and higher frequency food does not come in a box.
What?
And usually it's not in the freezer. Your high frequency food is fresh, and it's usually not
in the drive-through
or an abused animal.
Yeah.
Remember that.
Yeah, you should have told me that last week when I went by a fresh Krispy Kreme donut place. I did. I hadn't seen one in forever. And so I texted my daughter a picture. I said, don't worry, I walked in. I didn't do the drive-through.
You walked in and I've never had one, actually, at Krispy Kreme.
Well, when I went in there for one specific one, and they didn't even have it. But do you think I walked out with empty-handed? No, damn it, I didn't.
It's okay.
Oh, I don't beat myself up. I've never been one of those, but your dietary habits do change. But what I noticed in the last couple of weeks with the energy changing so much, that I was going out and buy, even if I was going to like the most organic place, I would go to the cookie aisle. And I started buying I'm serious. And I started buying cookies, and I bought like $25 worth of cookies at Mom's Organic Market. And I'm like, what is wrong with me? And then I have to hide them because my roommate, she's a nurse practitioner. She doesn't eat sweets. I don't want her to think I'm like some Miss Piggy, but damn, I think I was just craving the instant energy. But then I realized, like, took me about 48 hours to realize I was sabotaging myself.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was doing. And that was a pattern that needed to come up. And so I either could throw all the cookies out or eat them all really fast. I think I should throw them out.
Very interesting and life-changing realization. How we sabotage ourselves in so many ways. Yeah, because we've been conditioned not to be powerful. Mm-hmm. Many of us have been conditioned not to tap into our self-power and be all that we can be. So many of us are not allowing that expression of our true selves. So we sabotage. We can just be so hard on ourselves because society doesn't give us permission unless we're rich. If you're rich, you can be like a cuckoo, who cares?
And you can be 500 pounds if you have money. Who cares? Who cares if you're not good looking and you're overweight if you're rich? A lot of people just overlook it and they'll hang out with you anyway. If you're not, most like people will be like,
everything. It's crazy. But just like you said earlier, the times are changing. So when I came out 3 years ago, the atmosphere is not as accepting as it is now. Just 3 years ago. I mean, look how much it's changed, because now it's on traditional news.
Which I don't watch.
I watch very little. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
And
will flip through some things and something might come up and I'll give it a second, but I get my messages so well directly, and that even things that I got messages about 2 years ago that are starting to like show themselves now, I'm like, yes, thank you. Why, that's one of the worst things is, like you said, being hard on ourselves, and that self-doubt is one of the hardest things to overcome.
oh, it sure is.
Because when you get into that innate voice and you learn to trust that innate voice, you are still overriding programming of self-doubt that I'm not good enough. I didn't get that. It was my imagination. I must have heard that somewhere. It's not really my information, you know? And then we go into just screwing it all up instead of just stepping back. We do. We do. We have our own fuckery parties.
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's very important that we, that's an interesting type of party.
I know. I just made it up. That's what happens. Everything I do is like made up in the moment.
Mhm. Yeah, that's good. That's creativity being
Yeah.
expressed. It's very important. Yeah.
Yes.
I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, I remember. It's very important to do this work individually because we can see what's happening in society right now and we all want changes, but that change is only going to come collectively through individual transformation.
Absolutely.
So as we individually do the work, it all depends on you, each of us, me, each and every single one of us, to do the personal spiritual blossoming that's necessary so then we can collectively transform. So what we're seeing now, it's very hard to see what's happening in Ukraine. I have friends who are from there. And when I see what's happening on the television, you can't help but cry. It's just overwhelming. Why is this happening? Well, what we're seeing is the growing pains. We are shifting because there's been so many of us that have been doing this personal spiritual work. It's now that energy has been fortified and growing and fortified and growing. And now we're starting to see the changes in our reality because of that. So things have to erupt, and we're seeing eruptions across the board, and that's necessary. It's good. It's good for things to erupt so we can look at it and we can decide collectively that stays, that goes.
Yes.
That goes. That's what we're doing right now.
Yes.
And fear and violence is so prevalent on this planet that right now we're having a fear and violent eruption. So we can take a good look at ourselves because Americans love violence and they love death. There's no doubt about it. And here it is because we've manifested it, because we keep wanting more and more of that in our TV shows and our books and our movies and our video games. This is a time for us to look at what's happening with empathetic hearts. Also realize each of us have come here for our own particular purpose. It could very well be that sometimes when we see people having very difficult lives or experiencing things that are just so painful, their higher self has chosen that experience for them. So we can just have empathy. We don't have to understand why, but we have empathy. What we're doing is we're changing. We want to become a more loving, kind planet. So people like Putin have to be ousted. But first, Putin's going to flame. He's going to inflame. He's going to flame up before he leaves. And that's what we're seeing.
Yeah, and I want to point out to the thing about, what other people are going through. We have no right to judge because it could be that that's the path that they chose. Now, the flip side of that is it could be that you chose to overcome those, but you didn't overcome them. You kept allowing it to escalate and escalate and escalate. So now you had a whole lifetime of suffering versus listening to that innate voice, getting in tune, reaching out, getting counseling, getting help from people who see things non-traditionally, like you and I, and see if you can't go in there and work on that outcome in those moments versus living it outward towards the end of your life. And then you're like, what the heck did I do? So I look at it as both ways. I look at it as, okay, someone came in and this is what they needed to learn. And this is what they suffered and do and are doing and continue to do. And we can't judge that. And then it's like, okay, was there a point in your life where you could have taken all of that, worked on it over here in a lesser amount of time, and then gone through the rest of your life in a little higher vibration.
Yeah.
That's just a thought.
All of us. Like I could have accepted my ET thing decades ago.
Yeah.
What would my life have been like? Oh, I don't know. I have no idea.
Exactly.
But it took me this long, and this is like, it's just the way it is.
Well, that goes to the divine will and divine timing. And, maybe let's just say at that time you decided to go ahead and embrace it, but you didn't have the wherefore and the psychology and the maturity and the wisdom in that moment to be able to handle it. And maybe the support wasn't there, whereas you could reach out to the people that you have now. And now you're developing it so that there's pathways for people who are awakening to come your way. You know what I mean? And so it doesn't have to be as difficult. And I think that was the whole point of what can I do to work on this right here, right now? I'm sabotaging. I'm tripping over myself constantly. It's been 5 years. It's been 10 years. It's been 20 years. This is hell. And instead of exiting the earth or becoming a miserable, bitchy bastard or whatever you choose to be for the rest of your life, or the victimhood, reach out and see if you can't resolve some of that and learn your lesson sooner. Sooner.
I agree.
Everybody's visceral rock bottom is different than everyone else's visceral rock bottom.
Right. Also, what you're talking about entails a lot of self-introspection, and that's where a lot of people don't want to go there. But I'd like to say that we don't have to untangle every knot in our life. Like, right. We don't have to go down every rabbit hole of our life. Why I did that when I was 26, or why I said that when I was 32. A lot of times it doesn't matter. What matters is this moment, and how are you handling this moment? And you can't handle this moment successfully and positively without being attached to what happened in the past. You can do it. You just have to train yourself to do it. So the problem, in my opinion, with traditional therapy, although there's lots of wonderful things about traditional therapy, but some traditional therapy just leaves the client just going down rabbit holes year after year after year. Just why? Like, you can ask why forever. Why this? Why that? Why this? Why this? Why? So please don't fall into the whys. You don't have to know the whys of everything. Mm-hmm. All you have to know is that you have the power to change how you feel in this moment. We'll go from there. We might have to visit a few things in the past to clear them up, but we don't have to visit everything. It's not a dredging of every crappy thing that's ever happened to you.
Well, I hear you, and I'm going to echo that, because yes, some traditional therapy is wonderful. However, sometimes you're given enough whys where you become a lifetime patient. You become a lifer of the whys, right? And and I like to turn the whys to the wise, WISE. And so for me, like when clients come to me, it's like, okay, let's work on this. Let's do this. Let's do that. How are you feeling with this? Okay, birdie, it's time to get out of the nest. Little by little, you're going to learn to flap those wings, because I like you, but I don't need a lifetimer on my books, because then I haven't done my job that spirit brought me here to do. And that is to say, you have everything inside of you. Let me just help you push the little buttons until you realize, oh, push the buttons. I got this, and you're doing the exact same thing.
Yes. And then you fly, and then you help others. Yeah.
You do. But you never stop working on yourself. Sometimes you've got to drop off to other nests and help them fly, and then learn more lessons there. So, I mean, for me, I'm a constant, I get healing work. I do all kinds of things, to support myself, but also to support other practitioners out there. Mm-hmm. And so that to me is priority versus shopping for new clothes or my food money. I will use my money for healing work and trust that everything just keeps cycling around. That's what I do, because it's a never ending, loving education is how I look at it. It's not like, oh my God, one more thing and I'll be done. It's like, no, it's like you get there and you're like, ooh. And I'm like every day, like, what can I learn today? It's fun. Yeah. And that's that self-empowerment of, looking at things differently now, because once, like you were saying, you get in tune with all of this, and then you're just enough detached of certain things where you're like, oh, this is so cool. I'm just kind of hovering, and no judgment about where anyone else is, whether, and so
No
many people are up there too. And, it's
judgment about where anybody is. And we just have to remind ourselves that everybody has filters. And when someone's talking to you, they're talking to you through their filters.
yes.
And 99% of the time, what they're saying is really has nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
And so it's that kind of retraining or how we interact with human beings. We tend to take everything so personally. I'm like, just stop taking things so personally. I used to take everything personally. Now, I don't know if I take hardly anything personally anymore, because I know we all have filters. We all have filters. Yeah.
Well, I'm hoping to get wise enough that I'm not changing my filter in order to deal with everyone else's filter. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you have to change your furnace filter every month.
Yeah.
I want to be a clean generator where I'm not constantly changing my filter, so that I can listen to all of the other filters out there that just need to change their own filter.
Yeah, well, if your filter's clean, then you don't need to change it. But we have many filters. We have filter upon filter upon filter upon filter upon filter. And so that's what I've been doing, is just erasing. And, you can think of them like lenses, like eyeglasses, like this, how you're going to view the world through that lens. So pick and choose how you're going to view the world, through what lens, because there's a visual I like, a graphic, and I use it in memes, and I use it sometimes in my social media, and it's a picture of this head, and inside of it is a film projector, and it's projecting out. And that is everything right there, because your mind is projecting out your belief, and it's creating this movie called your life.
Yes.
And I think about that a lot. I'm like, what am I projecting in this moment? Am I projecting worry, or am I projecting, I got this? At every moment, it's important to remember that. What are you radiating? What are you radiating? Because that's going to affect what happens in the next second, and the next second, and the next second.
Yes. And it not only affects you, it affects everyone around you picking up that frequency. And so that's what I call respect for the energy. And that's something they self-taught me back in the 90s, long before Ho'oponopono I ever read anything about that. I was always cleaning the energy of myself before I go into the building, before I go into my office, before and after each client. So there was no residue before and after each client, and there was no residue around me. And so that everyone had a safe space, and we have to think of our thoughts. And people say, well, I just said that was my thought, my thing. It's like, no, it just went out there into the wind tunnels to everybody. It didn't it's not just hanging off of you. You've now affected everybody with that. So was it a thought that was uplifting, or was it a thought that created density? And the other thing is that we're saying thoughts that are triggering other people's stuff right now, right? So I've been saying, if you're triggered, heal the trigger. Don't kill the messenger. Don't hurt the messenger. Heal the trigger. Right? Well, before we close, is there anything else you would like to share with our viewers today? Because we'll do this again. Don't worry, folks.
Thank you. Well, I just want to express how much I enjoyed this. Thank you so much. You're very good. It was a wonderful conversation. Wow. And if anyone would like to get in touch with me, my website is planetsev.com. And Facebook, YouTube. I have my Psychic Studio online course and my soul sessions. Everything's on my website. And if you have had ET contact, I would like to hear from you.
Yeah, I think that's great.
I'm also going to be the Master of Ceremonies at the MUFON International Symposium in Denver in July. I'm very honored to be the MC. I'll also be talking at other conferences and things throughout the year too. So everything is on my website.
Oh, that's awesome. And I'll make sure that those links are in the description. Well, everybody, it has been a pleasure. And thank you, Sev, for joining us. And we're going to do this again, folks. So the links will be in the description. Please like, subscribe, and share. It's super important, because it just helps the algorithms send the video around so more people can be exposed to it. And then we also want to, ask you to share it as well. All right, everybody. Bye.
Right.
All right.